How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great, Carl. How are you doing?
Um, I'm also I am doing great mentally and emotionally. Physically, I am recovering. I just got over a flu or COVID or RSV or the cold or
Yeah.
I don't know whatever scary things the media is telling us that we should be scared of. That's what I just got over. It sucked, but I'm okay. Are you better than that?
I don't know if I'm better than that. It's always funny when you get asked that question, how you doing? And it just I almost default to great. And I probably wouldn't, maybe not great. I'm doing all right, but I think it's I find myself defaulting there. So
Mhm.
I don't think I'm better than I think I'm better than that because I'm not physically sick. So um, you know,
Mhm.
count my stars. I'm feeling healthy, so life's good, man.
Yeah. I mean, who's doing great? Do you know anybody who's doing great that you're like,
No,
"Oh,
they're lying.
man." Yeah. Seriously, tell me. Do you know anybody?
It's one of those things where you get caught up on, is everyone else doing great and I'm not doing great? I'm not. Should I be doing better? And then I had a family reunion over the weekend, and it was cool because you see all your family members, and they just things start to come out, and you're like, yeah, we're all there's shit going on. We're all doing pretty good, but if I'm sure if someone else met them on the street and like, hey, how you doing? But great. Everyone kind of has that great. Very few people give you like the holy shit. You get in an elevator with someone and they're like, let me tell you, and then all of a sudden, for me, I'm like, oh god, wait, what did I open here? This is a can of worms. And it's interesting how we don't really want to. We want that, but then we don't necessarily want it from a stranger.
Totally. Okay, so we're already getting into it. This is what I feel about this podcast, and this is what I wanted to experience is having a conversation with you where we can navigate two different paths. One path is the path of daily practice, performance, rules to success, fucking methods, whatever it may be. That's the one path that like
Okay.
let's go and help everybody be successful. And then I want to navigate the reality path, which is we are all just trying to figure it out, and it's messy and complicated, and we're just two dudes who are behind mics who really don't know nothing, you know? Like, we're just like pretending here with everybody else. And I would like to weave those two things together. Are you down with that?
I'm down with it.
I want to try to start with a question that may lead to the rules to success and then unveil the messiness and then maybe allow us to come back to something that is a takeaway for everybody.
Let's do it.
Okay. So my question is, Nelson Cuadras, what have you finished or completed in your life? What have you taken to completion that you not only feel proud of, but continues to be a benchmark in your life, and at the same time carries some valuable lessons, even if it's just one that continues to be a cornerstone in your thinking and your behavior.
Where I'm currently at with my career, because I wasn't sure where I was going for a long time, and I'm 35, and most of my 20s were a lot of confusion, and something happened around 30, 31, and then 32. I think I started to understand something a little bit more about myself, that I didn't stick to things. I like to jump around to ideas, and I think the excitement of those things and some personality traits and some tendencies would lead me to want to go something new and exciting, and then take it to a certain point but never really finish. And the job that I was in and that I'm currently in, it evolved, but it was really just like a contract role, and it was the one thing I never let go of and I stuck with, and it was tumultuous, and I went through a lot of periods of not really having enough income to survive. It was like barely, I'd get some help here and there. I'd just have enough to pay rent. Um, but I really believed in this thing, and something inside of me told me to like just stick with this thing, and you're gonna have to give up certain other opportunities to maintain this thing in this contract role, especially. And it worked out, and I don't know if that was a fluke, and it just like happened to work out, and I got lucky, and I think there's certainly luck there, but it was something that I continued to see through, and it evolved into teaching and doing that with personal training clients, and it's the one thing I've really seen through in my life that has continued to evolve and to expand my life and open doors that I would have never thought of.
And what is that thing?
That would be sticking with the coaching role that I'm at, and
Are you
how
allowed
it.
to talk about the company or no?
Yeah, I can talk about it. I think maybe loosely, but essentially what we do is like B2B workplace safety training. And so I was a contract coach for a long time. So I would go host seminars. And the first time I ever did a seminar was through our mutual connection, Chris. And you had done some of this before with him,
The
if I
reason
remember
Chris, the
correctly.
reason
Yeah.
Chris got the call was because I got a call from the co-founder and said, "Hey, can you go to South America to teach these things?" And I said, "I can, but right now I am not capable. But I know this guy, Chris. He speaks Spanish, and he has actually toured South America with me. Uh, Contact him." So
Yeah.
I put them in touch, and then you guys came together. I'm like, "Whoa, this is pretty amazing."
Yeah. It's incredible to think of my meeting Chris and then meeting you through that, and then getting this job at Worklead, and just how it expanded my life to see a part of myself come out that I felt like it was in there, and I didn't know until I was thrown into the fire of like hosting a seminar. And I'd maybe helped friends and family, with a few physical things like, hey, here's how to squat, here's how to do, some basic exercise, but it was never like a serious thing that I did as work. And I was always behind a desk doing, like, trying to force myself into a development role, a web development role. And
I remember.
yeah, and I would take shots at it, and I would help people that I knew with it. And I just, I did it, and it wasn't the thing I needed to be doing. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, and it really ate me up inside. It was like a lot of depression trying to figure that thing out, and um, getting this role through Chris, getting an opportunity, and through Workly was just like a game changer in my life. I realized, oh my God, this is something where I feel valuable, I feel useful, I feel like I'm helping others, and it's very clear that I have a knack for this. And if I build on this, who knows what can happen?
Hmm.
And and now it's evolved into a more like leading a like kind of a division of it, like the training side. And so having to find contract coaches, and getting on calls with clients, like customer success, like seeing a lot of different roles. And I think that's one thing from sticking with it, that I've been able to see a lot of flaws in myself and things that I know can be better, like organization. Like I always thought like, oh, that's just not who I am. Like I'm just not an organized person. And then seeing some people within the organization that inspire me, and like, oh, this guy's really organized. How does he do it? And I would ask him, like it's great working at a smaller company because you get to have these one-on-ones. And I'm like, hey, I know I need help being organized. I'm just terrible at this. And then getting some help, and learning, oh yeah, this person's not, they don't find themselves to be like an incredibly organized person as well, but to me it's very clear they are. And I was like, okay, well that means that I can probably learn these skills,
Hmm.
because I think work is so much of what we do. And if for me, if I don't like my work, it really impacts all the other pieces of my life. And so I know there's some people who can kind of compartmentalize that, but I just can't. And finding work that is satisfying, and although has its difficulties, that brings like like working with great people and being able to work on a mission that you believe in. I know not everyone gets that opportunity, and I feel very grateful for it. And I can't believe that it's like happening. Like
Mhm.
now that I'm speaking about it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And this is just my take on it, but I think a character trait of somebody who is connected to their bodies and to their feelings and to their thoughts has a very hard time compartmentalizing something like doing work, meaning trying to be productive. And the reason is because I think being productive is a byproduct of being something that expresses something. Okay, and this sounds very esoteric, but it's kind of like if um if you take a job doing something that you highly dislike, but it pays the bills, for example, you're going to have to fit that mechanism into making sense in your head so that you can do all these other things. Otherwise, you are incapable of doing that job. And for some of us, those two ends are like way further apart and they're almost like impossible to bring together. And I include myself in that. And I think it's also part of the creative nature. Like you are a creative person. I think that's why you can sing. That's why you have cooking abilities. That's why you have the knack for speaking and writing and expressing yourself in ways that most people wish they could even tap into. That you need to be aligned, so to speak, with your work. And I don't know anything about Workly. I don't know anything about your day to day. But if we just saw it on paper, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you're like, yeah, this is your future. You're going to be working at Workly. You're going to be doing some, admin and then hiring and team development, and then you'll do some teaching. And yeah, that's going to be your job. I don't know about you, but my sense is that you would be like, oh, I don't know if that's the dream. Is that the dream? You know?
Yeah,
Is that fair to even say? And it's not a diss on the job,
sure.
but I think sometimes we confuse reality with what we imagined our reality would be, and I think that can also be a problem.
Yeah, if I looked at this as a job, a descriptor for a job that I was applying for on LinkedIn or something like that
Hmm.
10 years ago, I would say, "Oh my god, that's like is that my life? Like corporate existence? Oh god." And it's funny when you're in it, and there's certain factors that make it a different thing than what it is, but when you I think I've had a very unique situation too where I've known a lot of the people that I've worked with. The company's grown, it's merged, it's become another thing now, but it still has its core. And I've been lucky to work with some of these team members that make it feel a little bit not so the description of the job. But and there's certainly things that you don't want to do them, but you do them because someone's got to do them, and you're the one to do them.
Yeah, like I hate
And
editing podcasts or creating a description, but I can't right now. I have to
yeah,
do it, so I'll do
right,
it.
yeah, and that's the funny thing about actually doing something and sticking with it and seeing it through is you have an idea of how things will be or might turn out, and I think of a lot of it's really just rooted in the fear of the unknown and the fear of uh, for I can say for myself it was, oh man, am I going to be stuck behind a desk all the time? Because I did that already as this web developer, very base level web developer, and And to me, it became like a prison. I was like, wow, I'm in these four walls. I'm working this remote life. I'm doing technology like everyone says is such a like great thing. I'm living the dream of a career where I can grow and I can be involved in technology, and it didn't feel like that. Um, so to then see something through and still even learn about these things, like you said, like editing your podcast, like going through the things that are not so fulfilling and being able to at least say, well, I have this idea where I would love all of my work to be play. Like the thing that comes to me like play and seems like work to others, there's certainly some facets of that. Like I know just the simple fact of, and you've done this before many times, is getting in front of a group and delivering a message is terrifying to many people. Getting on a call with clients, like I had a call on, I think it was Thursday or Friday, with one of our clients, like internally, with one of our customer success team and on some of our clients. And I know for some people that's a terrifying prospect. Like the client has some things that they're not so happy about. They have some questions, and to me, it was, I enjoy it. I enjoy the challenge of, how do I make sure that they're heard, and I maybe change their position or make them feel like we're moving in the same direction. Um, that to me is exciting. I know some people are terrified of that. So there's certainly ways that I would love my work to be all that all the time. And I think there's also a maturity that comes from realizing, okay, it's not going to be all that all the time. How am I going to deal with the moments that are not that all the time? If my work becomes too much of those things that are not play to me and are work, then maybe I should reassess. I should think about the direction of where things are going. I should think about what this means to me. And do I want to continue down this path? Before I would have jumped ship too early. And I think maturity has, and wisdom and experience has brought me, and like listening to great people who've done it before, like yourself and others, is that you like this self-awareness is really important, and things can get tough and you have to stick through some tough things if you know and understand that there is a lot of upside to what you're doing. It's like an investor wants to have like low risk, high reward outcomes. I think in life we tend to seek those, and at times you might play with that ratio and maybe go a little higher risk for a higher reward. But I think in the day to day, especially with most jobs that people have, you have to find something that feels like play to you and is work to most other people, but realize that that's not going to be like that all the time, probably. At
Mm-hmm.
least in my experience, that's what I found. And I think I get selfish and I think I want it all the time. And I know because we talked about this on my podcast, like the high of going out on a seminar and you crush it. And it's like, man, it's like the people love it. You hear the testimonials and you're like, oh, I want that feeling all of the time. And it's like a drug. You get
Mm-hmm.
addicted to it. And then when you go back to the desk and you're doing like, editing your podcast, doing the things that you don't want to do, whatever they might be, it's like, oh, it's not as, it wasn't a big hit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think experience has taught me that, and I don't know if I veered off of the question, but
No,
experience has taught
you're
me,
on point.
yeah, experience has taught me that, um, looking for mostly this playful type of work, and people who also enjoy and appreciate that and realize like, oh, we're still living this life, and um, I think you need a bit of that. I don't know if it's a balance, but um, yeah, I lost track, so I'll stop there.
Let's get to some points. Let's like dive into some topics, and let's just let it rip right now. What do you encounter? You live in Miami, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you encounter on a weekly basis that you're just kind of like, that shit just like, for whatever reason, it just keeps kind of rubbing me the wrong way or bothers me a little bit, and you feel some sort of way about it. Is there anything like that for you?
You know what? So okay, so I drive a Tesla, and I'm sure it's going to bother some people,
It
and then some people
really
are going to love
pisses
it.
me off.
So yeah, I drive a Tesla, and it's funny how people have an opinion on like the person who founded the company that the car you're driving. They're like, oh, this fucking guy, um, and then I'm interested. I'm like, why do we? It's weird how we always have like we're so quick to make an opinion and to voice it on something going on politically, and I just don't know if we have enough information ever on any of these things to be so like stick in the ground, like, to put cement around the thing and to be like, this is where I'm standing. And it's funny how and I get it, like I've done it too, and I think it's funny how we're so quick to let others know this is where we stand, yet we certainly don't have enough information. And I'm not speaking to any of like specifically to these ideas and topics. I don't really know. I don't know anything about, like, I know very little about what's going
Get
on.
into it. Come on, just tell me what you're thinking. Tell me. So you drive a Tesla. What do people say? What do people
Oh
assume if you
well,
drive a Tesla?
it's like this was like because this person was thinking of getting like an electric car. They're like, oh, I can never get one of those, but they really like the color of the
Why
car.
why can't they get one? Because it's too
They're like
expensive,
they can't
or
get one because Elon is saying something about he did something with Ukraine. I don't know what the hell. I don't. I looked
yeah,
it up and I'm like,
they turned off the satellite supposedly,
he turned off the
and
satellite.
allowed Russia to have an advantage.
Yeah, right. And it was something about with and he was quoted as saying he didn't want to aid to an act of war or something like that. And
And does this person have an iPhone?
this person has an iPhone. This
Oh,
person
so
has
yeah, they do support maybe somebody like Steve Jobs, who also berated, people, and like was terrible, and then manufacturers in China and all these things,
yeah,
right?
the
It's like,
sweatshop
and
and
then
all
we have,
that.
yeah, and then we have a slavery to get the cobalt needed to make the batteries. Like, we're all very hypocritical, but I love this.
And so and it's funny because I just Googled, okay, what's going on with Elon, Ukraine, and what happened. I was like, okay, he turned off Starlink, and then he was quoted as saying he doesn't want to be involved with a act of war, whatever. And I just on the surface I read it and I was like, well, you know what? If it was me, that's a kind of understandable. Like, I don't think I would want to be involved in anything war. Like, it's like for my brand to be, oh, because I turned this thing on or off, whatever. Like, it helps someone in war. It's like that's kind of. I'd probably want to be distanced from that entirely. That's not my. That's not what I do. And so it's interesting how we just like, man, we're living in a time where there's so I can't avoid, and this is with like family, you can't avoid conversations around all this political stuff, and we just don't have, and we're so like right, it's like, oh, I'm right in my ideas, and it's like, where did you get these ideas? Like,
Mhm.
some one media outlet that is going to cater to one group of people is telling you this thing, and then the other one's telling you this thing, and there's certainly truths, and there's certainly things that are real. I just find it fascinating how, because I don't like to do it. I don't like to talk about this stuff really ever, because I don't feel like that's a place where I understand well enough based on the information that I'm given. And I meet very few people who also are well versed enough or educated enough. And there's certainly people who are, and this is what they do for a living, or they're much more well researched. I don't meet many. I don't think most people are like that. And it's very interesting how we really go for it in these topics,
Mhm.
and we're like very quick to tell someone exactly how we feel and what we would do, and not really realizing, like, it was interesting, like, I don't take offense to it, but I can certainly see why someone would be like, or what are you saying about me and buying this car? What does that mean about me? Like, does that
Mhm.
mean, because I don't think about it as like, I don't think of it as like I'm supporting someone who's crazy. I'm like, I understand the person who created this company that makes these cars is probably going to be a little crazy, because who do you meet who's a super high achiever to like the extremes of society and is normal?
Mhm.
It's like those typically aren't balanced people. They're
Mhm.
typically the people who are not sleeping much, very hyper focused on what they do, and so there's probably a set of characteristics that might come with that person, that they might not be the person for you to look up to socially, but hell, they might be a hell of an engineer.
Hmm.
But maybe you don't look to them to be the person to, like, your kids are going to learn about morals or something. But it's interesting, and then maybe that goes to my bigger points. Like, it's interesting how we put a lot of public figures on a pedestal, and we expect them to do all of the things. We
Hmm.
expect them to be like gods, like
Yeah.
they are all seeing, all being. They're they're righteous. They do everything. They should do everything okay. And it's like, these are just people,
Hmm.
and they tend to be people at the extremes of humanity on the scale. And so, I don't know. I don't know where I went with that, but
You went to a place where I think we all know nothing, but yet we walk around thinking we know something. And whether we have deliberately done it or unconsciously done it, we have allowed ourselves to be educated to see the world in a certain way. And when we see the world in a certain way, we walk around projecting our reality onto things. And then we are also recipients of those projections. And if there's a crack in our armor or we happen to be in a vulnerable state, we're going to receive that projection and then either experience extreme dissonance, a moment of like, what is happening? Like, I just can't compute, or all of a sudden feeling like you have to change your ways. Um, and changing your ways not because you chose to do it, but because you had an elevated feeling in that moment. Oh man, they judged me for driving a Tesla, and I'm supporting Elon Musk, who's this crazy man who's going to destroy the planet and is bringing racism back at this like insane rate. Um, I need to change. I need to sell my Tesla right now. Like,
yeah,
I need to walk everywhere, and now I'm going to whatever suffer because I deserve it, as I supported uh, a war criminal or
yeah, yeah.
something crazy. We're all just crazy people walking around. We're all nuts. I feel like we're nuts. Make
I agree.
sense of it. Man, I have so many thoughts. Can you separate the art from the artist?
It's a okay. 10 years ago, I would have said you must always separate the art from the artist, and now I'm not so sure, because it's like they're like, it's like a thing that's inside, and it's the thing that makes them them. And but I feel like an artist, and sometimes I think of the things that I want to create or come to my mind, and I'm like, man, if I put that out there, like, you're gonna think you lock me up. Like, it's a thing of wanting to create or wanting to see where something goes and what it evokes. And I still tend to think you separate, like, how many cultural things do we have that, uh, like, what we know as culture is really these artists who, if we looked into their personal lives, we'd be disgusted. And we hear more and more things about incredible people throughout history, and suddenly they're out, and it's like, now we're going to cancel them posthumously. Um and it's one of those things where I'm not sure if it's even possible to, for future generations, for, like, to have such a sanitized humanity that never does anything wrong, that's always right, that never missteps, that can create great art. Is it even possible? Like, we're meant to do this, and we're gonna mess up. And it doesn't mean you advocate being an asshole or doing wrong things in an effort to create art. I just think so many of these things, so much great art comes from pain and comes from an upbringing of turmoil and abuse. And sadly, a lot of abused people become abusers, and it's like a perpetuating cycle, and it's incredibly sad. And I'm not sure if you ever divorce these things, and not speaking specifically to abuse, but just divorce the maladies of life, like all these bad things that occur from really great art. It seems to be pretty consistent. And sure, there's great artists who, came from a great upbringing and everything's great. Like they have a pretty solid home life and there's always something somewhere. But I don't sure if you ever. I think that's just humanity. That's part of who we are, what we do. Um, and to try to say that everything must be so perfect is just like it's not reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's like even like great families, like it's funny, like two sides of my family, it's like one side's a whole lot crazier, but the other side's still crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one side's a whole lot crazier. And I would consider both these families that I've been able to grow up in, like my mom and my dad's family, like they're great families. I wouldn't ask for anything else.
Yeah. It to me, it's kind of like the nature of nature. It's destructive yet creative. I mean, praying mantis. Let's reproduce, and then I'll just eat you alive. You're doing the thing that is creative, but it comes with some like really destructive behavior, or at least something that just our conscious minds, our ability to process these things and have like access to what we would call moral conduct. It
Mm-hmm.
just makes it so confusing. And family is a great one. I mean, Ram Dass, who I've read and listened to a lot, he says, if you think you're enlightened, go see your family, go visit your family. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that one. That one's
yeah you'll really realize. Anyways, I think what we're getting to is that life is messy, and no matter what we think we know, we really don't know. And what's behind great things sometimes carries some terrible traits and behaviors. But this doesn't mean that they're not something that we can learn from, repent on, and reconcile, uh, and for the receiver to forgive. I mean, I think it comes down to not intentionally trying to do harm. That's my sense, is that
mm-hmm.
if we can live in a way where we are not trying to cause harm, then we will have very successful lives. But we also have to be aware that even if we're not trying to deliberately cause harm, somebody is going to be harmed in the process of expressing ourselves, especially if we open ourselves up to be free to express. And if that's the truth, if that's a rule of life, to realize that when you cause harm, that you have an opportunity, a choice, the ability to rectify it in some way, and to also set the boundary as to when it's gone too far. And I think right now we live in a state, just globally, where we're so connected, there's so much information, that the pendulum has swung so far that we have no clue what is too far. And it's hard to gauge. And I'm hoping that our little, conversation here, this like meeting of the little minds that we are, just in this like, being a speck of dust in this universe, that maybe there's a little bit of mirroring, that people listening are kind of like, oh shit, I'm glad they're kind of talking about this, because I feel that way. But where do I land? Like where do I find myself safe and secure? My question to you is, where does Nelson Cuadras throughout a week, a month, feel like, I can plant my feet here, and when I plant my feet here, I can be productive, I can feel alive, I can even be scared or feel sick and still be okay. Like I feel like I'm here. In what situations, what scenarios, like context? Do you have anything?
It's another one to take to my therapist.
Oh shit.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't really. That's a question I've been trying to answer for all my life. I don't. It's hard for me to find that sense of like this is a good place right now, and it's like it's riddled me with like anxieties and uh, moments of depression, and ever since I can remember, I was like a kid, and there's certainly times with like my family when there's no thinking about, or with my family, or with my girlfriend, her family, my friends. Um, it's like those moments where you're just not thinking about anything else. Um, a seminar, it's like when I'm in the flow. It's like when the all just feels like play, and it feels like, oh, this is right. This is how things should be. And but those moments feel like a flash, and it feels like a lot of the other time is like trying to find that moment again. And going back to the whole work thing, it becomes a challenge because I'm trying to bring that with me to work, and then all of a sudden it's like, damn, it just the mind starts going, and it does things to the body, and then the body doesn't want to move, and then it's like a vicious cycle. Um, and yeah, it's one of those questions that I it makes me think of how many other people are dealing with this same thing, and then what is really important work. Like, this is such important work to help, to like, so many people struggle with this, and we just like all kind of like there's people who silently suffer in that thing, just never kind of feeling like it's right or it's okay. And maybe that's the nature of nature, and that's the human condition for many. And I think on these days, with having so many external images being shot your way, it's like social media or any video you watch, it's like everything looks very good and nice and curated. It's funny, in Miami here, everything is like very aesthetic, and there's beautiful things everywhere and people, and it makes you think, am I missing something? Is everyone
Hmm.
else finding a sense of like okayness that I'm not able to find? And is, it's like, am I supposed to be feeling this often? And so it's really, yeah, times with friends and family and community, the things that we hear that are important. um I've tried to have exercise be that thing for me, or like tried to let it be the thing for me, and I don't know if it's me, or but it's funny, like, you can watch the Huberman, and like Huberman and any of these other people, and like we all know, like, it's just my space too. It's like being physical and all that, like, yeah, it helped, but it also like also doesn't bring me a sense of peace many times. and
Hmm.
and I think like the community stuff is really the being with friends, family, girlfriend, like those things are probably the times of most peace. And then being in the flow of a seminar, those are like the things I know are just like, man, I feel at one whole. I feel this thing that I've felt even when I've done like a microdose of mushrooms, and it's like there's like this everything fades away. There is no more like silly worries, and you're like, oh, is this how humans? This is how I'm supposed to be moving through the world, and like and like the connection piece comes quicker. I'm like, oh, it's interesting. This thing is a catalyst for connection, and really, is it what we need? Is it just connection? Is that the thing that I'm missing greatly? So many are missing greatly, and a lot of time, especially I think of remote work and the interesting mental conditions that may come from this, or mental challenges. Like, I'm in a room and I'll be here alone. My girlfriend might pop in, have lunch, like she just did not too long ago, and then I have to get stuff done. I have the choice to like walk outside, and that's a nice thing, and not have someone like breathing down my neck. Or but there's also this isolation that occurs in a job when you're working remotely that to have that be a majority of your time. I don't know if Zoom calls cut it, um, and I'm sure some of us need more than others. But there's certainly a sense to isolation where there's apparently more studies that are saying there's more isolation um, due to how like kids are interacting. And I've seen it with my own cousins how it's cool to see them at this family gathering we had over the weekend because they're all like the younger ones are like they're hanging out, like no one's on their phones, which is really cool. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember one Christmas when a set of our cousins they're like in their early 20s now, and they were like teenagers at the time and in high school, and they all had cell phones. And this like Christmas get together that we would have, I always remember running around. Didn't have cell phones when I was growing up to do this, and they all have cell phones, and they were all like hanging around the couch on their phones, not really talking. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe sharing something like, "Oh, did you see this?" Um, and then I was thinking, no, that's I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, so yeah, that's those are the moments where I've found with community, with people, with family, friends. That's where it feels right.
I think a lot of people do have meaningful connections with others where they feel like they can be fully themselves, but I think it's not as many as we may think, right? And something I just did like a little, not even deliberately, it just happened organically where I was like, Instagram seems dumb right now. Well, I don't want to post anything. If I'm just going to post, I'm going to post because I want more people to maybe listen to this podcast or buy my thing, just give me the money type thing and we'll be productive on
Yeah.
back channels. I'm like, Instagram's dumb. Social media is dumb. This is me just exaggerating, okay, right now. But I'm like, I'm going to skip it for a while. And what's interesting is that as soon as you skip trying to project who you are into the world, the more you realize nobody's trying to reach out to you. Like nobody is trying to connect with you. Maybe somebody is thinking about you, but far and few uh, in between are like messages or whatever that come through that are really meaningful. If anything, somebody wants something and they need a favor. They're not like checking in on you.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but something very interesting happens there is that all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a second, this reflexive behavior to try to find connection um, in the state of the world that we live in right now, where we have technology and all these things, it's just that it's just a reflex, and you're like, what's the next thing? What's the next connection? But that connection never grew any roots. It was just kind of like in passing. You just kind of like it's something that's superficial. It's not something very meaningful necessarily. And what I've noticed, and I've done this like several times where I've gone less active on social media or less active, like talking about myself. And all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, I feel like reaching out to certain people. I feel like talking to certain people. And sometimes I ask myself, like, why do I want to talk to this person? Oh man, this person either makes me feel safe. They allow me to be who I am and express myself without any conditions. They are not scared of challenging me if they disagree. They can call me on my bullshit. And when they do that, I never feel bad. I actually feel very encouraged. I feel very safe. I feel very secure. And um, it makes me want to celebrate these people. And thankfully, I have a family. My biological family is very much like that for me. Like my parents and my siblings, they're amazing in that way, and they're the people I like to reach out to. And each one has their own like category, of course. So
Yeah.
if I need something, I go to my sister. If I need something, I go to my brother or my mom or whatever. Right. Uh, and I just think it's cool to become aware of those things. And it comes from a place of just feeling secure. And I think feeling secure in this moment of time that we're currently experiencing, like true security, um, to me seems rare. I know this sounds like very convoluted, but I think it comes down to, where do we find security? Like, where do we feel rooted and grounded and confident? And I crave seeing more confidence in the world. I even crave being more confident. Uh, I don't know
Hmm.
if you can relate to that, because and I share this because, like, just on social media, or you get behind a podcast and you hear people speaking, you think, oh wow, that person's really confident. No, that person is just projecting confidence.
Mm,
That they're not always
yeah.
truly confident. I don't know, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's never enough confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm always like, that guy's so much more confident than I am. Fuck, how do I be like, how do I have that kind of confidence? How do
Mm-hmm.
I, and then I know someone's looking at me and saying, my God, this guy has so much confidence. How could he post something like that? How can he be so out there? How can he talk about his life so openly? And yeah, I certainly relate. There's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think there's so many ways that we're taught to be self-reliant on everything we do. Like you're gonna, you need to figure it out your own. You gotta be the one. And yeah, it helps having, I get so much confidence from just talking to my parents, and I'm lucky that I have really supportive parents, and they listen, and I can just talk to them about what's going on in my life because they want to know, and that brings me confidence. And they'll tell me things like, you can do it, you got it, like they've never not. And I'm so lucky to have that. And props to people who can do it on their own, all of it, because it's not possible for me. So
Mm-hmm.
having support is huge. And there's just never enough confidence.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think being able to bottle that confidence up is something powerful, and everybody gets it from different places, and expresses it in different ways. But I think nurturing confidence is super cool. I mean, I talk about my grandson all the time, but this dude's fearless because he's naive. Also, he doesn't know the consequences of his actions. Like, dude, this is very dangerous right now. What's your plan, son? What's your plan? Uh, but noticing, wait a second, this kid is curious about climbing up the furniture and is going to do it anyways. So if I'm not looking, it's going to be sketchy. But if I'm looking, how can I encourage
Hmm.
you to do this dangerous thing in a way where, one, you do it safely or with minimal risk, and two, that you actually learn the consequences of failure here in a way that is just right. It's going to hurt you or give you feedback just enough to help you make a better decision. Uh, and I don't think there's a right answer to that, but I think that's artistic in a way. It's like
Hmm.
it's the art of parenting. It's the art of building resilient, confident kids, people, individuals. So that's like one thing. The on the other side of confidence, there is being truly, it's being truly productive, like producing something. I find myself like, I have lists on lists on lists that I have to make on a weekly basis when I'm very creative, that allows me to identify whether I'm being productive in my creativity or not. Because if I'm not productive, and maybe this is just a personal trait, whatever it may be, if I'm not productive, I feel highly unfulfilled. And when I feel highly unfulfilled, I feel I feel like I lack confidence. My
Hmm.
question to
Yeah.
you: when does Nelson feel productive? Like, when are you productive, and how do you measure that?
That's a great question. So much of it is in professional life. So if and I like how we've become very organized, and that's helped my organization because I didn't have this organization, and so having these goals to hit, like every quarter, having goals to hit, um, making some like progress that is then recognized and that is seen as on like a weekly meeting, like, oh, okay, hey, where's this at? Oh, this is moving forward. Okay, great. Hey, we saw what you did. Um, like this is a great addition. Getting on a call with a client and being able to find like common ground and see that they're having success, or they're understanding something better, or they're going to have something coming to them that will bring them more value, and seeing that on a call, that to me is like, okay, there's marks of productivity here. And it's more than just like completing task, because I don't feel necessarily productive when I'm just hitting the task down, like, checking check marks. It goes like a little bit beyond that. There has to
Mm-hmm.
be some sort of, this is this is done, therefore someone else can do this now. Otherwise I just feel like I'm a robot, and that doesn't feel productive. That feels something else.
Mm-hmm.
It almost has to know. I have to know there's an impact somewhere else along the chain. Like it moves something forward for someone else, or maybe even for myself. But yeah, those are I think of productivity and like a lot of it in work terms, though, like in work life. Because if I tell myself, "Well, I'm going to go for a bike ride today," to me, it's like I don't want to be productive on my bike ride. I hate the idea of being productive on my bike ride. I hate that. I'm like, no, I want to go on a bike ride and just enjoy being alive and riding a bike, because it's amazing we can ride a bike, and it's like the coolest feeling ever. Or I want to go play tennis because I want to go play tennis. I don't want to be productive and say like, oh, I did it for an hour today. That's awesome. Like when my life becomes a lot of checklist and did it for this amount of time, it's done. Not productive. If it's that along with who was impacted, did they get some value out of it? Okay, now I feel productive.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
Yeah,
the chains are, something's moving here. Like we're moving forward.
totally. And so now we've been navigating very much the convoluted ideas of life, and we just kind of been uh, yeah, sharing whatever is coming up for us. Let's try to organize some things here for a little bit. So now let's go and organize. So a few topics that have come up are goals, like goal setting, having a destination, focus, organization, bringing something to completion, connection, and I think there's before I tie this all up and we get to pontificating on how to be successful in these manners in these matters. I was just thinking as you were sharing, like if you're a cyclist, okay, you're somebody who bikes, you can be passionate about biking, meaning that you just like to get on your bike and ride. That's cool. I think when somebody is passionate about something, everything is effortless effort. But let's say you took your passion to a level where now it became a means to an end in terms of also helping create a lifestyle, not something that's only making you physically healthy, but creating an exchange of value where now your resource with either bikes or clothes or money, you became a professional. Now, when you bike, the thing that creates that exchange is that now you become connected to an audience, to a group of people, to a community, and those people are investing time, money, energy in connecting with your biking uh, in a way that maybe allows for escapism or entertainment or whatever it may be, or they just want to be invested in your journey, and that kind of defining your profession. But for you, as somebody who's passionate about biking, that passion will only continue to carry over into your profession if you're able to access its vocation. And the vocation is the spillover, where all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, if me getting on the bike is something that I'm passionate about, and now also creates a mechanism for conversion, which is we could call a business, which now I'm in profession. Basically, I'm a professional within this space. I can only continue to do this if I know that it goes beyond. if the impact is greater than just my mechanical action of riding the bike, and that being maybe something that inspires others to do the same, maybe influences let's say mortality, or it reverses child obesity. It's something like that. And also you have this metric that makes it something bigger than riding the bike itself, and even bigger than that which you love. I think that's when, as humans, we become, as close as possible to uh, whole, fulfilled, or whatever it may be. And I don't know if when I share this, if this is something that you can relate to, but I believe that there's certain things that when we focus on them, methods, practices, ideas, that allow us to move closer to it, to that fulfillment. And I would like to explore that now in this next part of the podcast. So did that resonate with you? Do I sound completely crazy?
I love how you organize these things. I've always admired your ability to take, like, in structure, take these things that I float around in my mind, and I see them in my life, and I think of how do I want to do something that feels like a passion, or I think once it's funny. I have a notebook where when we were in San Francisco, where you drew out Ikigai.
Mm.
You drew it, and I have it. I still have the notebook. I wish I
Whoa.
would have found it for this, but it's in there, and it's like you drew, like, I think, I don't know how many circles, and then like the intersection of all these things. I think you talked about vocation. So I love how you've been talking about these things and like crafting them over time. I think it's really cool.
Mm.
And when it comes to, and that is in itself, I think you blended, like, coming from a sports world, gymnastics, then teaching it, then it like evolved into this. Now it's really your life. You're looking at, like, how you move through your life. So like sports evolving into just how your awareness and what you do in your life, and um how it blends with vocations and passions. And uh I think I'm not sure where I stand on that in terms of, like, in my own life, because I enjoy fitness, and I hate the idea of being known as, like, that's the only thing I do, because I'm not sure what it is that I do in that space. Like, I feel like I'm more of a entertainer. Uh, I like to teach and, like, help people understand an idea through some form of entertainment, but um, it's weird to think of, like, fitness, some sort of passion for fitness. Like, I don't necessarily have a passion for fitness. I like being fit because I don't feel as bad. I feel better when I'm fit. I like playing. I like sports. Like, I love playing tennis now. So I'd rather play more sports than I would work out or be in, like, a fitness context. And then there's, like, the association around the culture of fitness that it kind of irks me many times. So I'm like, oh, just to even be involved in the fitness culture feels weird, or to be known in it. And then I see, like, what you're doing. I'm like, oh, it seems like many people could think of Carl as being someone in fitness culture, but you've now gone in this different direction that has its influences from that world. But it's not, I don't see you as, like, living in the fitness world necessarily. It's more of like a self performance, and it's performance, but it's like a your own performance in everyday life, independent of singular focus in fitness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And yeah.
it's interesting that you say that, because it's been 8 years. It's been 8 years since I deliberately chose to move away from being in the fitness space. 8 years.
Whoa.
And people still message me, like, you know, Love that push-up progression. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm so glad that
Yeah, yeah.
like part of my life did a thing. And I've also wrestled a lot with what you just shared. Like the identification with a role is really challenging. But the sooner you let go of it, it's like, oh, if you see me as a fitness guy, perfect. Yeah, I am. If you see me as the, I don't know, like now I'm kind of like a sports agent type thing. You see me as I am, yeah. Oh, a life coach, I am. You know, podcaster, I am. Yeah, whatever. I'll be whatever you need me to be.
Hmm.
There's something very freeing about that, and I don't know if you wrestle with this as well.
I do. Yeah, I do. And the times where I've felt okay with it are the times where I've done that whole, yeah, whatever, dude. Like, I just want to be effective. I just want to be effective, and I want to get through to you, and I'll be that guy in your world because I'm probably thousands of variations of me in all different kinds of people that would interact with me in some fashion, especially now with social media. You know, you have whatever a following, and I'm certainly different variations to all these people, but my mind gets stuck on this identification with, and it's funny how it goes to like the worst of the worst. Like I found this guy who has this business that really got me thinking. I'm like, this is so cool. This guy does, um, I forget the name of it, but anyways, he does an online training business, and it's just like a bunch of normal looking people, and I'm like, I fucking love this. Everyone looks fit enough, you know, and some people maybe they're not like the fittest looking, right? But he focuses on like the psychology of training, the psychology, which is like always what it comes down to, like being able to stick with it, doing things that like starting at the minimum viable whatever you can do. And I thought, you know, why don't I think of comparing myself more to this, or if I'm in the fitness field or someone wants to think of me as a fitness person, yeah, I do stuff like this. You know, I like transform your psychology and your idea of what's possible, and understanding that, because that's kind of what I love to do, is to help my clients understand, like, look, you don't need to do all this crazy shit. Like, you could do what works for you, and we're going to do what works, and it doesn't need to be complicated, and it's going to be simple, and most of what we do is always like a therapy session anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't I compare myself to that side of fitness? But for some reason, you think of like the most cringe worthy fitness trends. That's where my mind goes. I'm like, oh man, the fitness industry. And it's like, oh, well, there's also a lot of people doing really great things, and if you want to call me that, cool, I'll compare myself to the ones doing great things there.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I love it. Okay, so now what we're going into is I think we've just found the core of what we can offer through this little conversation we're having, which is our own take on being effective. So I'm just going to share my opinion on this. I think being effective is when you can be in the moment, notice or ask for what being effective looks like, taking on the role, becoming that, and then uh, expressing that role with an end, with like a finish. Do you have a take on what being effective is? We can even look up the definition, but what's your take on being effective?
Being effective is transforming yourself as needed to bring someone to an understanding that you seek them to understand, and yeah, getting rid of an idea of yourself in order to deliver a message that is received as you hope it to be received.
Mm,
And I think it's just purely in like the context of what my own experiences have been at a seminar, where I'm in a room with like these blue collar workers, working long, hard jobs. And I used to go in there with like a man bun, and I got my funny looking tattoo, and these people are like, "What the hell is going on here with this guy?" Like I don't fit in. But for me, it was like I need to find common ground with these people, and the easiest way I know how to do that with any group of people is through humor.
Yes.
If I make them laugh, I can be effective.
Hmm.
And you break the ice with some humor, self-deprecate a little bit if you got to, and suddenly, you're bonding over everyday things, and you're helping some guy. Oh, my daughter. Hey, by the way, my daughter. You might be teaching a hip hinge, but it's like he's like, hey, my daughter is trying out for the soccer team. You have any ideas for me? And it's like, yeah, we don't have a similar life, but there's common ground here where I can now be effective, and you can learn what I need to teach here, and you're gonna leave feeling better off in your life, and so am I.
Uh, Definition of effective: successful in producing a desired or intended result, fulfilling a specific function, in fact, though not formally acknowledged as such. Okay, so that's the definition. But you brought out some really powerful things. It's that being effective is helping people get the needs that they have in that moment met. It's like you're going in for a training talking about hip hinging and picking up heavy loads or odd objects, and they're like, yo, you know something about training? My daughter, she's trying out for the thing. How does she get access to that? Like, that's what's important to them. And I think identifying what's important to people is so powerful. And I think as a creative like you are, and you really are an artist, using humor levels things. Like we can all laugh at things, and I think being able to do that is extremely powerful. Do you have any any things that you deliberately do to be funny, or is it just instinctual?
I think a lot of it's instinctual, and I grew up in this a household where my dad was constantly making fun of things, and he still does. And we would just watch something, and he would just like say 10 different things about the person. Like he would just make fun of things, and and it was always just like humor and watching things that got a laugh. And going back to this idea, like the you were bringing up, like or that you talked about, where it's like the guy whose daughter is trying out for a soccer team, whatever it is. It's interesting how there's this idea of like having to stick to this, like the plan. People like, oh, they'll go away from that and be like, oh, I gotta, no, we have to stay on topic. It's like, no, you should go towards that thing. Like if this guy's asking about, and it has nothing to do with what you're trying to teach at that seminar, for me that was always like, this is how I know I was productive or I was effective. This is how I know I was effective, because when that guy leaves, there's a better chances that he remembers the program, and then he might not remember jack shit about what we talked that day, but he's gonna remember the program, and he's gonna remember me, and then he's gonna maybe inquire, talk to other people, and now we can have like this network effect where the people who need to see it will eventually see it, and it'll have a better chance of spreading. It's like this thing pops up. It's like that's the thing you have to feed. It wasn't this script that you have like, oh, we have to go according to plans. And it's funny because I think in the beginning I remember like you see other coaches, and I think I was lucky to come in from a very different perspective, not having been a coach and formalized in a process of like, oh, you got to stick to the beat and the cadence of the thing. I was able to like break it up a little bit and just kind of go with the things that would spring up, and then use that as the, like, hey, let's talk about your daughter, and then, hey, do you mind if I talk about this to the group, because I think it's a great way to bring this all together. That's when I know I've been effective, because you,
Hmm.
you you don't, and it works and it clicks, and I think some of that's innate. And I think some of it was learned for sure. Like my mom is such like a empathetic person, such a great listener, And I think a lot of this comes from just listening. Like you have to be being effective means you listen, like you know what people are looking for, and if you might like if it's going to push you off of like your course that you thought you were going to follow, you're able to drop that and say, okay, this is the new course, and this is what's going to get the message, like this is going to get the message home. Let's go this way and let's see what happens. I think that gets you closer to being effective than just trying to like, you have an idea of how things should go. The universe puts a whole different thing in your path, and it's like, here it is, man. It's like this guy just randomly brought this thing up. It's a 10-second conversation here that just started. Like, turn it into a minute, whatever. Go with it. And yeah, at home it was a lot of empathy and a lot of understanding and seeing one side. My dad really like a lot of comedy humor, a lot of it making fun of other people, and then being like, man, this is brutal, you know? And then other side was like a very empathetic, and not saying my dad's a sweetheart, but my mom was also like this, just very empathetic, like, oh, you know, like you don't want to talk trash about people. I was like, my dad's trashing people left and right on the, and it's like hilarious. He's like roasting people, you know, and I'm like, oh,
That's his love language.
that's his love language. So I empathize with roasting, and it's the one thing that I want to do more of, but it also, I feel like it gets me into a lot of like the stickier side of things online. You know, people like message or comment, and then it's hard for me. I have a lot of this side of my mom where I'm like, man, am I being an asshole?
Mm-hmm.
And I grapple with that part a lot more than I do like, because I get a little rise and I get the kick, and it's fun, and it's fun to it's fun for me, and I laugh. And then, but this other side of me is like, damn, man, like, okay, how are you making people feel? And it's hard to, you know, do both those things. The best roasters they don't give a shit about how anyone feels, and they're amazing. You know, they give a shit about being funny, being effective, making people laugh. So I think it's a little blend of those things. I think what I'll do is like, I know self-deprecation is always the easiest one. So if there's something I know that maybe I showed up a little bit late, or there's something that I can talk to myself that helps bring, because they're looking at me, and I establish the like, this is who I am, this is what we're gonna do today. When you establish that level of like organization for the group, then you take on a leadership role, and people will look at you as like, you know, at first I didn't do that, and then you don't have control of the room. So I established like this leadership role in the room by saying, here's where we're going, here's what you're going to get out of it, here's what I'm going to get out of it, here's what we're going to all get out of it together, and here's the plan, and we're going to have a good time. And then after that, it's like, okay, kick in a little bit of humor in the presentation. Like, I always do like a short presentation, but like a lot of imagery, and something that can be like funny, something that can get a laugh somewhere, like surprise, you know? The element of
Mm-hmm.
surprise is what people love, that stuff. It's like you're
Yeah,
telling a story. So you
it's
want like,
awesome.
yeah, you want some humor in the story. And
I mean, that's where I thrive, and I spent so much time thinking about this while doing seminars. You know, for me, I would always just laugh. I'm like, 50 fools just signed up for my seminar, not knowing, you know, that I'm just making this shit up. This is hilarious. But at the same time, I'm like, I know I have something to add to their lives and can give them value, but I can't lie to them. So I'm gonna have to tell them the truth, like right off the bat. Like, hey, everybody, just so you know, I'm just a dude trying to figure it out, just like you. And everybody's like, okay, that's cute. Now tell us the thing. I'm like, okay, but the truth is, I know some things, but you know much more than I do. So let's just be clear as to what is happening here. And I think when you do that for people, you you make them not only trust you, but they're like, wait a second, this is very empowering. And when somebody becomes empowered, uh, they are assuming a role. That they are the students, the audience, the whatever. You're assuming the role of teacher, leader, whatever. And now we're just going to play this game. And just by having an agreement that we're going to do this, makes one effective, I've found. And let's see if this rings true with you and see how you've navigated this. But I would always ask people, like, why are you here? Like, did somebody make you come here? Is this something that you're hoping to get out of this? Like, what's the deal? When people tell you their motives or why they're in a place, playing to that now allows you to find out what their needs are, find out what they care about, and create something. You basically can create a piece of art out of very rudimentary things like hip hinging and squatting and pushing and pulling. It's cool. I assume the people that you have also been in seminars with are like, they have to go to this training. So they're like, you're forced to do this thing. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with, what do you call that?
Well, yeah,
Forced compliance.
yeah, I bring it up and I'll say, well, I'm sure a lot of you here have been voluntold to be here. So, let's, and I think you brought up a great point. It's like identifying what everyone's roles are in the room and then what their needs are. So in my case, people have different roles, and whether they work in safety or they're a frontline associate and they're told, hey, you need to be here at this thing because, you are, you need to be part of this, whatever. Most of the time we try to pre-vet. And it doesn't always work out this way. It's great when it does, but we tell them, hey, here are the kinds of people this would be most effective for them. If they're really into safety and maybe they're not a manager yet, but they're on a track, or they're just one of those people who's like all about it and they want to see their team members succeed, that's probably a good person to have in the room. The person who's like, not about it, halfway out the door, you don't want to like waste your time and money bringing that person into the room. So that does help, because a lot of these people are volunteered to, and I think also gives an exciting opportunity where you can really surprise those people. I have this advantage where it's a safety workshop. It's a safety seminar. Safety is boring. Everyone has safety on the mind. Safety is safe. It's not risky. It's not exciting. So if I can make this thing fun, a little bit more exciting than what they might think it's going to be, if it's going to be engaging, if it's going to have them talking and moving and doing the thing, I have a chance of success here. I have a chance to surprise them around this idea that they initially had. So it's great. Like you set the bar real low with the word safety, and then now, you can excel and you can blow them away with, oh yeah, by the way, this thing we're doing here, hey, you use this stuff all the time. You want to go to the gym and get stronger? Boom, use it there. You want to go home, pick up that bag of mulch? You want to start the lawnmower? You want to do all your yard work and not get jacked up? And it's like all of a sudden the stories come out. Oh yeah, I was picking up this thing and I tweaked my knee, or I took that step up the attic and I was like, okay, now we're having and then that's what I do. I'll be like, look, well, the reason I love doing this is because you get to take this home with you. Like, work is great. Hey, but you have a life outside of work that you love. And there's things you love to do outside of work that you live for. Let's focus on those things. Mm-hmm. So when we take it there, it's like, okay, even if you have a group that's had to volunteer to be there, or was told to be there, it gets around the whole fact of like, they weren't seeking this thing out.
Yeah, safety is definitely boring, but needed. And I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking about a million ideas of how to make something funny, physical, like using physical comedy. Do you use physical comedy in these sessions?
Well, Chris would tell you so, because like we did this one seminar where Chris and I, was like two of us, and we had to coach like 80 linemen, or like linemen as in like
yeah, they're working a factory line.
No, like in like electrical poles.
Oh,
Like yeah,
like
they call them like
linemen
linemen.
like that. Okay.
Yeah, like they like climb poles with like those shoes with the spikes, and like they're like electricians and all this. And these are like, and this is like in Minnesota. These are like some tough dudes, And it's a group of like guys who are just like heavily bearded, and they all look bigger, and like a lot of them are bigger and stronger than Chris and I. And even our main point of contact, this guy used to be like a legit lineman in like college football and everything, but he loved the program. He got it.
Yeah, because when you said lineman, I was thinking, oh, like a lineman, like football, and then I was like, oh,
Yeah,
maybe it's like line worker. No, it's linemen. Okay, that's
yeah,
crazy. Okay, these
and
guys, I got,
that's
I
what they
got the
call them.
picture.
Yeah, and so yeah, they work for one of these utility companies, and we're in this room, and it's like we tell them, hey, usually we tell the clients, hey, look, it's one coach for every like 15 to 16 associates. Like if you want effective training where that coach can be involved with everyone and coach and cue and like physically cue and do all these things, it's more ideal if we do it that way. But they were like, we're gonna like, hey, surprise, here's 80 people for you. And that's, we had this big conference room, and then
Just
I'm out there kind of showing like, how the muscles in the leg stabilize the knee. So I'm in this like lunge position, and I'm like wobbling back and forth with my leg, like my knee, like I'm like, and then I'm trying to show like glute engagement, hip engagement, how you kind of like can like help lock things in and stabilize your knee. And and I, and I remember I had like 2 cups of coffee. I was just like, and I if I have half a cup of coffee, I won't sleep that night. And I had like 2 cups of coffee, and I'm just like talking a million miles an hour, and I can feel it. I'm like, oh shit, I'm going a little too fast. And I'm doing this demonstration, and I'm like wobbling. I'm like, look, I'm like on a tightrope, like if you're on a tightrope. And I was wobbling back and forth. And then I remember after Chris goes, he goes, dude, chill out. he's like, he's like, he's like, man, you were wobbling. He's like, bro, I wanted to laugh so hard. And it's like 80 guys just surrounding me in like this conference room in a Marriott. And then Chris is like, dude, you look crazy out there. He's like, slow down. And yeah, so that was my physical comedy. But yeah, I'll try to like kind of it feels natural to me, but I use a lot of gestures. Like I'm very like physical, and I don't recognize it. I think it helps though. I think people, you're moving, you're a moving target. Like people are like, what's going on with, what's this guy up to? So I think some of that, I don't know if it's physical comedy, but that moment was for sure. But there's certainly times where I try to exaggerate something, um, and it definitely helps get the message. It's like you're bringing energy. People want to see energy. We went to one client, and we were part of their safety day. And so I had a lot of exec supervisors.
safety day.
Yeah, yeah, right. Fun day.
Oh
And the
shit.
guys delivering some of this material, like their own safety trainers, man. And we were supposed to come out and wow this big client, and this can be really monumental for us to get a pilot with them, and it ended up working out. Um, and I remember watching them present, and it was Chris and I. We were, it was us together doing this, and I'm like, dude, we're gonna smash this. These guys are so boring that we're gonna come in with the energy we always bring, and we're gonna blow it out of the water. And sure enough, at the end of the seminar, we had like 2 or 3 of their trainers walking up to us and saying, hey, like you guys put on a hell of a seminar. Like, wow, that was great. That was like so good. One guy's like, are you guys hiring? Like they were so impressed by the way we delivered it. And it's really like, you bring the energy, you are there because you care about the people, you're trying to find a common ground, and people feel that, and they respect it. And they respect it when you're up there and you have that real confidence, right? It's not like a made up put on confidence. Like you go out there and like you care and you have energy, people recognize. And I think that's that physical comedy, physical performance that shines through, that people, and it shows. And a lot of
Mhm.
people don't have that experience, which is surprising.
Yeah.
Like, man, a lot of people just go to very boring meetings, boring seminars. The people are uninspired. And I think I'm lucky enough to have material that I believe in and that I know is valuable. But I think anything that any kind of presentation can use a little bit of that physical. And we're human beings, we're moving beings, and if you come out flat and boring, you don't get them right away. It's gonna be hard to get them back.
The best is when you start getting tired and like this you know irrational side of you starts to come up. What I love to do is that when 50 people are like focused on this thing, if let's say you were wobbling in the middle of the room and just like speaking way too fast, I would start to laugh out loud and I would allow it to become a thing.
Hmm.
Like, because it's the best. It redirects the focus.
Yep.
And the reason I bring this up is because I think to be an effective communicator, to be an effective teacher, you need to entertain people. You need to hold their focus. And to be able to do that is a hard thing, especially when you're talking about boring subjects or scary subjects. I mean, that's why airlines invest so much money in their safety videos. You know,
Yeah.
they're trying desperately to get people to listen. And I think Southwest, I think they do a great job with their allowing their flight attendants to be entertaining in their announcements,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, you just want to convey the message. If you can get the message across, now you're being effective. And I just think that those who are effective are also happy.
I mean, I personally agree. It's when I feel that, it's like there's a lot of contentment there. There's a satisfaction that is unmatched, and yeah, it's important to be effective if you want
Hmm.
happiness. I think because
Yeah.
I think yeah, there's like this idea of like a Ram Dass or something like that, right? Like where these are I think really special people, and they certainly have very good lessons, and I think they're also outliers, and many of us derive like this satisfaction, happiness, and could be from knowing that we're effective, that we're helping someone else, and maybe it's the nature of nature, knowing that you keep moving something along
Hmm.
for someone else, and yeah, yeah. It's funny how you brought up the laughing, because that'll happen too. It's just like we'll just start laughing at each other, and and people see that and they feel comfortable. They're like, there's that confidence again. There's something about holding the attention, and people laugh, and if they see you laughing, then it opens it up for them to laugh.
Yeah. It's funny. Chris will tell you this. We were on one of our trips together and I was just so tired. I just wanted to get home. And I remember right before starting the seminar, everybody is pumped. We're ready to go. And I look at him, I'm like, can't wait to get out of here, dude. And he just looks at me like, what? I'm here like shadowing you, trying to learn from you. You're just telling.
Oh, that's
And I
awesome.
just remember laughing, just saying, I can't wait to get out of here. But then I go up on stage, I'm just like, let's go. This is gonna be great. And both of those things can be true. Like I really can't wait to get out of here. This sucks. At the same time, I love being here. Thank you for having me. Let's do this.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah, there's and that's I think it's important when you're working with people too to be able to the thing that's in the air, you can speak to it and say, we're still going to do this. We're still going to kill it. I've had
mhm.
so many of those moments with Chris where we've had, like some trips are crazy. You have like 4 days in a row, or, and you're just, we had one trip that was like, we had weird times. We are doing like 2 a days, and you had one at like 10 o'clock at night to cover the night shift. And you're just drained, and you're like, I can't wait, and you're in the middle of nowhere, Canada, and you're like, I can't wait to get
Totally.
home, dude. I'm so fucking tired. But you show up, and you bring it, for that time you bring it, and I think it's good, because then otherwise everyone feels like they're crazy. They're like, wait, should not stop.
Totally.
Am I supposed to be okay with this? Yeah.
Totally. It's got like, I can't wait to talk to you about squatting and picking something up. It's like, it's going to be so cool. It's going to be amazing. But I think when you can make the most mundane, simple things special, life becomes special. And I think we're all meaning making machines, and I don't think everything has to make sense. But when you can, in retrospect, kind of look back and be like, oh, that safety course I took or whatever, that was pretty cool. Like
Mm.
that was funny. That dude Nelson, I was like cracking up. I was engaged. I
Excuse me.
can't remember anything about the techniques, but man, the experience was wonderful. It was memorable, and I think that's a big indicator of being memorable. Um, which kind of leads me now to this idea of in being effective or being productive. Everybody wants to perform better, right? It's kind of like, oh, give me the secret sauce, the rules, the things that I should do, the methods. You have the daily practice, your podcast. Is there anything that you've learned in talking to people who claim to know something, and you've included me 3 times or 2 times or whatever,
Three.
and there I was sharing my wisdom. Is there anything you've learned that you found to be true in your life and that now is a non-negotiable?
The Something physical has to be there. There has to be some sort of physical movement every day, and I notice it builds up. I have to keep the momentum, so I have to. I have a rower, thanks to one of Chris's clients, Brad. Appreciate you if you listen to this. Um, Gifted me a rower, and I have it in my apartment. And if I can't get out of here and I can at least do 30 minutes of that thing, 20 minutes, it makes a difference. And just having something physical, like going for a walk, something physical is a non-negotiable in my life. I don't think it has to be every day for everyone. I've noticed for me, it does make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
If I go a day without it, I can get by, but I know I can. And then the next day, the effects are there, and I liken myself to a dog that has to get the energy out. It's just like I don't know how else to make sense of it, but it's like if I don't get that energy out, I'm going to chew the couch. I'm gonna make a decision that is not the best one for me. And yeah, that's been a big one just from all the people that most of them have physical practices on the daily practice. That seems to be pretty consistent for them. But I've noticed too that that can be a source of like a place where you hide fitness and being physical, and so it's getting something physical in and trying to make it more of a playful thing if I can. So I'm trying to play more tennis. Like I recently picked up tennis because games are something that I think I want. I need more of in my life. I know it. Like games are there's something to games that you don't get from squatting. Um, and then another non-negotiable is I got to see friends or family um, at least once a week, like family once a week, because I can get so wrapped up in trying to get things done or figure something out or learning something that I'll neglect family and friend relationships, and that I really feel that then everything else doesn't quite click as well.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two, I think, the two strongest non-negotiables for me right now.
Okay. So physical activity, the games are included in the physical.
That's my ideal. I haven't been so great of making that the case, but it has to be something physical that is. If it's something solo, it's skill based and something that I can focus on. The handstands were great for that. It just take up so much goddamn time.
And so
Yeah,
boring.
it's so boring.
So boring. But
It's
it
the
really
most
cool.
boring.
I love handstands and I still practice them. But
Yeah,
so boring. Yeah. It's
yeah,
exciting. And all of a sudden you're like standing there alone. Man, I got 3 seconds. You're like,
yeah, yeah. You're like, so that's where I think games are preferred, or and
hmm
getting outside. So if I'm being more specific, like riding my bicycle feels good.
hmm
Even though it's sometimes like it's so hot here in Miami, you're like, oh god, getting out there is sounds like a drag. It feels like a drag. But getting outside, doing something like, and I think if it's a game, that's like the best. It's like if there's like levels to this, it's like playing a game with someone is the best
hmm
because you can confront things too. Like I confront my competitive nature there, and it's like, but really, I want to like my favorite thing about tennis is being able to volley, like have a good like bam, 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 like back
Yeah,
and
that's
forth, you
fun.
know. But if you're trying to win, like you're not going to always have that. But
Well,
if you can like,
that's interesting because games, being effective in a game, is different than being effective in playing.
oh, you mean like trying to win versus trying to like
Totally, you're
collaborate,
playing the
trying to
game
yeah.
versus trying to win the game. But you have to play the game to win the game. Have you read Homo Ludens? It's a very philosophical book, but
Oh, I think I remember this being thrown around in the movement circles as like the book to read, but I never
mhm.
read it.
It's intense, but worth a read definitely. I love this, and the reason I wanted to bring this idea up of like the game or the play is because you said two, but you mentioned three things. You mentioned physical activity, then you said a game thing or play thing, and then you said seeing family. And I'm wondering if play is actually the connector, where it's like if my physical has an element of play and my relationships has an element of play, I feel the most fulfilled, and thus I can be the most effective in the rest of my expression.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this lately because when I play tennis with my girlfriend, I feel it's incredible. I feel there's something right in the world, in my world, and I don't get that same excitement from squatting, but I love to do it. It gets me. I get stronger. I can see the changes. It's like it's nice. But it's like if I only had so much time, I would just spend my time playing tennis all the. I would spend my time playing tennis with people. I would spend my time playing basketball, whatever it is. It would be a game that I wouldn't care about all the other stuff. But I still do, and I still don't have as many opportunities to go play tennis. So I'm trying to do that more. But I would just do that because like you said, you get all these things that are so important and make us feel whole. You get to be with someone else. You get to there's an aspect of competition and it's playful. The best is when you get that nice blend where you're both like going for it, but you can keep it up, and then you're being physical. You're moving your body. So I love the game of tennis. It's something where I see myself like, man, I want to be that old guy playing tennis every day.
Yeah, it's cool. It's I mean, the only reason I got into tennis is like 99% of people who care about it, which was through the Netflix docuseries Breaking Point or Breakpoint
Oh yeah, yeah,
Breaking Point, maybe it is.
yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I know nothing about it, and I'm a terrible player. But I enjoy. I can appreciate it. There's something about this is so silly, but as you're saying, like when you're playing tennis, just the urge to want to like get the ball and just to volley, where you it's kind of like animal instinct. You become like a dog. You don't even know why, but you're just like chasing this ball. There's something really like primal about that makes one feel alive. And I don't know if you can really get it through squatting. It's like
You
can't
know,
wait to chase that bar. Like
but some people do. I think some people do.
yeah,
And
psychopaths.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. They're typically, yeah, they are. I mean, when you see people lifting huge weights, like, you're like, man, this is some psychopathic behavior, but props to them for, accomplishing such crazy things. But yeah, I mean, that's funny. I've been doing this program where I add 5 pounds or 10 pounds depending on the lift every like other session. It's like a workout A, a workout B. You do it every other day, and I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, I'm like, these weights are pretty heavy. Like, I don't know what else I get from adding another 5 every time. Like it definitely, like, I feel like my body does most of what it needs to do. I'm not going to ever confront weights that are more than this. Like, there's diminishing, the ROI is minuscule at this point. So I'm like, I think I've found I think a lot of people keep chasing. It's interesting, like in fitness world, you keep chasing these numbers that are like, what do they mean at a certain point? It's like, dude, you're doing something that you'll never have to confront in your life. It's like you're not gonna move this weight and then do it like 10 times in a row or 5 times by 5 times. Like, it's great you're strong. If you have certain goals, I think it definitely helps as an athlete. But I don't know, as you get older, I understand more so why people try to play more games, play tennis. They try to keep active in these ways because it just satisfies these core pieces to life where it's like you're the dog just chasing the ball, and it just feels so good just to be alive in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the best, and it's the best to be lost in that too, which is cool. And I'm not saying that you can't get that with the bar, and everybody who's like listening, like, well, what do you mean? I love the bar, and it's like that's my life. Yeah, do it, go crazy, and you're not a psychopath. You just have like mild mental illness. It's
well, and I'll say too, like and I think a lot of people do it with other people, and it makes it that much better. It's like, yeah, when it's like Chris and I, and maybe it's like that feels so much better than doing it alone.
Best.
And like you're able to accomplish more things, and you have this community piece that is so awesome. And I think that's why so many people gravitate to fitness, and they talk about it and they share about it online, because you're sharing this your commonality with so many other people. It's like your physicality, which is the thing you have, and you can dictate where it goes, and it's part of your health. And yeah, it's one of those things where, man, it's so much better with, like, things are so much better with people.
Totally. I think anything can be fun when you do it in good company, and you add an element of play.
Yeah, when I look back at when I wasn't working very much, I was barely making any money, but I had this practice. I was like following the movement stuff, and I was doing like 3-4 hours a day, but it was always with Chris and the other Nelson and our friend Kevin and like a group of us, and we were just like always together in community trying to learn some sort of like new movement thing.
Like, how can I be like a lizard or something?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. How can I do a lizard walk, and how can I do whatever capoeira thing, and
let me like imitate being fire or something. Like,
exactly.
Like, how can I be the flame?
How can I be a modern dancer and never actually be a modern dancer? And
totally.
Those are great times. At that time,
amazing.
I felt this struggle of like, my God, I have no financial means. This is crazy, but
I'm the flame.
But I'm the flame, man. And to be the flame is life.
Yes.
And
yes.
And yeah, those are good times. I look back and be like, there's always a time you can look at and be like, those are good times. Like, yeah, you gotta enjoy it all.
How far apart can I splay my toes? Like, come on, shoes are the devil. Like,
oh man,
I got like doubles players or whatever. I can hang from a bar with my toes. Can you do this?
Oh man,
that shit just cracks me up. Dude.
Oh dude, it's the best. Those toes, man. I think I have a buddy who was like, he got big on Instagram and he was selling those toe things, And I think I did a video once, like talking shit about the toe things. And I was like, man, this guy's not gonna like it. But it was so funny because I'd see Chris with these toe things. I'm like, what are you doing with those toes, bro? Your toes are those are your toes, dude. I'm like, your feet. Maybe shoes made them tighter, but those are your feet, dude. Like, your feet aren't gonna. People have like narrow feet. Like, that's their feet, and they're like, I think my feet are gonna. It's like, no, dude. No.
There's like some of these like movement influencers whose big toe looks like a thumb already and like develop into like they're like straight up
They're
ape.
just picking up shit. Yeah, yeah. Oh man, dude, it's funny because I have a
Next thing we know, you're gonna be flinging poo.
yeah, yeah. They put you in the zoo. I had
Yeah.
a I have a crazy. I have wide feet. I have the toe splay. I have
You do,
everything.
you
Just
do.
naturally, dude. This is my genetics. And my friends would be like, how'd you do that? I'm like, it's just my feet, dude. Like this is what they are.
You're like, I've been trying to
Good
wrap
luck.
my feet like a geisha.
Yeah, I've been trying to fit into these Nikes, dude. All I can wear is these ugly ass barefoot shoes.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, see, this is fun. That's what I'm talking about, and all of that that stuff. I think being able to make fun of the things that uh, are really fruitful and productive is great. I remember when I met Ito Portala for the first time, and the only time actually, because after that I was banned from every single like movement gym in
Oh
the
my
world.
god, dude! I
Uh,
remember that. I remember heard of that.
Basically, it was like I was like, "Fuck, this is so serious right now." Like, if I didn't catch a fish with my bare hands yesterday and like ate it, like starting with the eyeballs, I'm not gonna be welcomed in this conversation. And I'm just like,
Uh,
I just don't belong here. Um. Anyways, that's what I was like. Oh yeah, I'm not in the movement culture. I'm in the urban mover or whatever. I'm like, I drive cars, like whatever.
yeah. Oh man, it's funny how like people get so like whatever you create, you should like have people make fun of it. Like that, I think that's like the sign of the confidence. Where it's like let the people, and it happens with all kinds of like public figures. They'll like delete comments, and you hear about these things like people screenshot stuff like, "Look at this guy deleted my comments." It's like, man, like if you're gonna put stuff out there, you have to be open to the scrutiny, and a lot of it's just like it's funny, man. Like you don't poke fun at other things, so
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, I mean, I listen to myself sometimes. I'm like, dude, you're ridiculous. You
oh yeah.
you
I
just
mean,
need
I'm
to
talking about
chill.
myself, not yeah. But I'll listen to back to this and be like, oh, fucking idiot.
It's cool though. I mean,
you know?
anybody who's listened an hour and 51 minutes into this right now and is like fully paying attention, maybe there's something there that's real. And this is what I'm taking. Let's bring this to a gentle close. This is what I'm taking away from this. I think having open conversation is important. I think as somebody who cares about being significant in some way in this world needs to be effective. Becoming effective requires you to embody whatever role you're in this moment. To embody whatever role that you are in within this moment requires awareness. So, having some practice around awareness is important. And sometimes that is just time that gives you that experience and that ability. You can also accelerate it by, doing meditation, breath work, whatever it is that you do. But like uh, the saying goes, is like if you ask a guru on becoming enlightened and asking them how long it'll take you, they may say 10 years. And if you say I'll double down, then they say, well, then it'll take you 20. It's like you can't try harder to arrive at awareness. It's just something that has to come over time, and that humor and just realizing how silly everything is, and how although life is serious because it is life or death, um, we're all gonna die anyway, so might as well like see the humor in it all, and just the silliness of the things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, life is funny, man. And that's like, I think that's always been my North Star is where's the funny in like the pain, the struggle, the good times, the bad times. Life's a funny thing. It doesn't make sense. And there's so much fun to be had making fun of it and enjoying that side of it.
For sure, for sure. um Nelson, did did we talk about anything that you care about today?
We just had a good old conversation. Like that's all I care about is I hate having to watch my words, and I like being thoughtful and being effective. And I appreciate this conversation, Carl, because we just get into, I think, what many people might be feeling or thinking about. And it just one person can enjoy this, and I think that was effective to me.
Well, I enjoyed it. So if it's just me listening back during the editing, painful editing, which I'm not going to do much of, um, it was great. Let me just say this: the first time I met you, or actually knew of you, was because you were doing some kind of collaboration with somebody. I think I can't remember where he lived, but he was an actor.
Denver, my
Yes,
lord,
there you go.
in New York.
hmm And I remember you caught my attention. It was probably around 2016, 2017, maybe 2018. Do you remember when it was?
Man, probably 2016, I think now, because yeah, 2016 probably. I was living in Brooklyn.
Mm. Well, I just remember seeing you and being like, oh, interesting. This dude is very thoughtful, well articulated. I can't really put him in a box. Like I was like, is he a movement guy, like movement culture, Ito Portal dude? What is he? I couldn't put my finger on you, and I liked that. And then we met in person, and I was like, oh wait, you're not only all that which I saw, but more, and you're extremely humble, yet super talented. And then you continued to just express yourself online. I'm like, you can sing too, and you can do all these technical things on top of being creative. I was just very impressed, and I've always admired you. And I hope that you know that you are a gift to this world, and I really mean it when I say it, and that every time I see you online in any capacity, I take the time to kind of listen through and pay attention, because I think your perspective on life, although for you may seem normal, I don't think it's part of the norm. And I would love to amplify that and see a little bit more of it. And um, I believe that the more of it we can have, I think the healthier we can be at every level. So just to know that you are a vehicle for that type of human growth, human development.
Thank you, Carl. That means a lot coming from you.
Yeah. Well, you're loved, my friend, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I enjoy this time, and I will cherish it for a good while.
Amigo, same here. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be on the freestyle way.
There you go, the podcast. All right, let's end it. I'm just going to stop the recording. Bye.